Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Into the Storm with Ken Nowitzki. And obviously, we're kind of new at the old podcast game. And, I've talked to several people, and I'm not a big guy in reporting the news. I like the news. The news is great, and we'll do that, and we'll talk about the stuff that's going on. But, I like to talk a little bit more from the heart and base my things on common sense, and people that have met me on the campaign trail and worked with me, a congressional race and 2 state races, have probably gotten a pretty good feel for who I am, being a former coach and working out in the business world as long as I have. So, I think that when we look at everything that's happening in politics today, and I'm a Republican. I was an independent in college. I worked for Ross Perot. I always loved the idea, even in my youth, of having a businessman running our republic, because they're not worried about feelings. They're worried about profits and losses and good direction. Most businessmen that are very successful are pragmatic. They make their decisions based on the good of the dollar, profitability, the good of the company, which in this instance would be the good of the republic, the country of ours. So what the hell happened between the Democrats and the Republicans that has created this gigantic sea that's in between? Because, when I was in elementary school, I'm 54, there was a picture of our president in our classrooms, and there was an American flag and there was a POW flag. That's what was there. And none of the teachers I had in elementary school, in middle school, or in high school, I really didn't know what their politics were, but they all displayed the picture of the president. Obviously Jimmy Carter was in there, and then Ronald Reagan was in there. George W. Bush the first. Nobody seemed to really, I don't want to say care. I don't think that's a fair word, but nobody had this preconceived notion or this outward animosity towards our leadership, and more importantly, about our nation, our country. We were taught that the United States was an exceptional country. It was a place where settlers came and won over the land, and it was a great place. It was a great experiment that just happened to go very, very well. The Poles, the Germans, the English, all of the Europeans that came here, they kind of set all of the stuff aside and created this republic and a government for the people, by the people. And it literally turned out to be greater than anybody could have ever imagined. So the frustrating part now with the Republican and the Democrat parties is there used to be very little between the two. Meaning, when people always say, they're 2 wings on the same bird. Well, yeah, that used to be a lot more true than it is today. And what I mean by that is this. In the 60s and 70s, JFK, Nixon, you go back, Ford, these presidents all presided over a country, even 40 years ago, that had a great deal of patriotism. People loved the Stars and Stripes. Now, don't get me wrong. There was a small portion of people out there that didn't like this country. Call them the hippies, call them whatever you want. There's always been a very small percentage of people that just didn't like America. But the vast majority, we're talking high 80s, low 90% of the people that you would bump into on the streets, they believed in American exceptionalism. Well, now you look at the parties today. The Democrat Party is entirely different from the Republican Party, at least when you look at the most staunch portions of those people. The vast majority of people are still right in the middle. But the love of country part, which I feel is imperative to have a great republic, believing in American exceptionalism, that doesn't really exist on the left anymore. Being pro-life. In the 70s, in the 60s, the vast majority of Democrats were Catholic or God-fearing, and they were pro-life. Now, you get into the 90s, and Bill Clinton's like, abortion should be available, it should be safe, and it should be very, very rare. That was Bill Clinton. He said that. Now, the whole party is in this ideological belief where you should be able to have an abortion whenever you want, all the way up to, in the state of Minnesota, the moment of birth, which is barbaric. But that's the Democrat Party. That's their platform. And they really aren't fans of the Stars and Stripes any longer. They don't find American exceptionalism as anything that is valuable. They are teaching our children things that they should be ashamed of their country. And I always think to myself, what is the future going to be like for all of us? I'm 54. I won't be here a whole lot longer, but my children and then my grandchildren, they're here. But when you've got elementary school teachers and middle school teachers and high school teachers and college professors teaching this generation that the United States is a racist country, that is a horrible place, it's a destructive country, it's no place to be proud of, it's a place to be ashamed of, I don't know if they realize what they're doing, because that poison is going to permeate throughout society, and we're seeing it right now with the Republican-Democrat Party divide. The vast majority of Democrats that are out there, I genuinely believe, are still, they love their country, they support the military, they believe in law and order, and they want justice, and they still truly understand the great promise of the United States. But that fringe, that 18 to 20% of the Democrat Party that is on the far left, the AOCs, the Chuck Schumers, the Nancy Pelosi's, the Gavin Newsoms, the people that are just, Gretchen Whitmer, that are all about this overpowering belief that the United States is not a great place, or they've got these beliefs that are so far left and that big government is the answer to everything, and it's permeating through everything. And the college professors and the high school teachers teaching these kids these poisonous beliefs isn't going to bode well, not only for us, just regular everyday Americans that are like, I love my country, I support the police, I understand they're not all perfect, but good Lord, without law and order, civilization collapses. You have to have law and order. I still get misty-eyed when the anthem is played, the national anthem. I believe in the great sacrifices that our veterans have laid down so that we can be a free nation. And I absolutely believe in free speech 100%. But when the free speech is now all of a sudden turning the very thing that you love into something that you can't recognize, and you've got lawlessness in the streets and cities literally being overtaken by fentanyl and homelessness and crime, and it's impossible for you to see the promise that our forefathers set forth because of the unrivaled poison that is being pumped into our youth, it's incredibly frustrating. Being out on the campaign trail, I've seen and heard a lot of things. And the level of rhetoric that is directed towards people that are running for office, on both sides, I'm sure, is just, man, I would have got my ass beat if I would have talked to people the way people talk to each other today. It's just crazy. There's no respect. There's no love. There's no brotherhood for the most part, especially on the far left. It's crazy the stuff that people say and accuse you of, not knowing anything about who you are. So the distance between the two parties is something that has always just kind of baffled me. And I guess it all comes down to this. If you do not love this republic and you do not respect the sacrifices of the brave men and women of our United States Armed Forces, and you don't respect good law enforcement, honest law enforcement, and everything you see is through the lens of evil, 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 it's going to make it really, really tough, because the center does not hold. Things fall apart. And I just wish that people would realize that there is a far, far fringe, whether it be on the right with the white supremacists, that I gotta be honest, I've never bumped into a white supremacist in my life. Or at least not an outwardly white supremacist person or a white nationalist person that I guess is supposedly the greatest threat to our republic. I've never bumped into them. And I travel all the time. I've been to all 48 lower states. I've never been to Alaska. I've never been to Hawaii. But last time I checked, not a lot of white supremacists or white nationalists up in Alaska or in Hawaii. Could be wrong. I don't see them. But yet we're told constantly, this is what you've got to be afraid of. But I have seen and witnessed and dealt with on a weekly basis the far left, the Antifa, the far left wing, burning cities to the ground, fighting with police officers, causing trouble, rioting, looting, putting out poison on the internet and putting out poison in the classrooms. I have seen that. And it's kind of funny because I see what we're told we should be afraid of for the last 4 years, but I'm witnessing an entirely different thing that's happening. So it's kind of like somebody saying that 2 + 2 = 5. I don't think that's true. I've never experienced 2 + 2 = 5. And I got to be honest, I don't want to live in a society where 2 + 2 = 5, because if that basic fundamental preference and standard is gone, then society's in really big trouble. Okay? Everything that I've ever been taught over my 54 years is that there's two genders. It's been that way all through human history. But for the last 1/10 of a second of society, now all of a sudden, even something as simple as that is being thrown in to create chaos amongst everybody. I mean, we've got to really start getting back to common sense and realizing the enemies and what evil truly is. For me, and most of the constituents that I sought to represent, they want safe streets. They want reasonable taxes. I mean, a lot of people say, I don't mind police departments, EMS, fire, streets, stuff like that being taken care of with my tax dollars. I'm all for that. I'm not, don't tax me. You'll never hear me say that, but use my taxes wisely. We want our kids to be taught to love their country, to be respectful. Common sense things. 2 + 2 = 4, not 5. Education, be focused much more on history and math and reading and writing, getting them prepared for the next step. These are the things that were the platform of my campaign. We have got to realize that sea that has grown between the Democrats and Republicans is a dangerous sea, and we have to somehow figure out a way to overcome that. And the Democrats not showing up to do their job is not helping, okay? It's just not helping. I truly believe in power sharing. I've said many times, I don't have all the answers, and I'm considered a conservative. I don't have them. And I've said, anybody who tells you they have all the answers, you need to run from, because they don't have all the answers. Trust me on that. But, while we're having our coffee this morning, we're talking about this, there are things in life that are obvious, they're true, and you can count on it. It's the bedrock, the foundation of common sense. Focus on those things and cut out all of the noise, because there aren't many farmers, I would imagine, out in rural Minnesota. They get up at 4 a.m, they're in their machinery by 4:30 with a cup of coffee, doing what they do. that are DFL members. These are Democrats because their grandparents were Democrats, their mom and dads were Democrats, and they're DFLers. I don't think that there's a whole lot of those gentlemen, and maybe some women out there, that honestly believe there are 27 sexes, that don't believe in American exceptionalism, that sometimes don't get a little bit teary-eyed when the national anthem plays, that believe in small government and low taxation, and want to pass their farms on to their children and want this to be a generational thing. And they're out there. They're blue dog Democrats. But today's Democrat Party does not align with them. And I'm not saying that the Republican Party does, but my God, when you look at the love of country and just basic common sense and civility and just law and order, I don't know how those folks that are out there in rural America can ever claim to be a part of the Democratic Party as it is today. Now, I'm sure there are people in the Democrat Party say, well, how the hell can you say that? Look at the Republican Party. I'm not here telling you the Republican Party is awesome. It's perfect. It's not perfect. But our forefathers knew there would never be a perfect party. They knew that. The Constitution, the Bill of Rights, that protects us from lunacy. But when I look at lunacy, and I've got friends that I consider highly intelligent, it blows my mind when I talk to them sometimes and I listen to them talk when it comes to politics at how incredibly far apart we are on things that I would just imagine being basic fundamental facts. And it's everywhere. So the hope is that eventually enough smart people, like in this election, will be tired of all of the nonsense and they will vote accordingly. They'll vote for secure borders. They will vote for law and order. They will vote for people that say they're going to allow them to keep more of their own money, that are going to uphold and hold up small business. They're going to work on keeping fentanyl and drugs out of our country. They're going to work on things like tariffs and our trade deals around the country so that the American worker can start to get back to work and start building things again. It's not good to be dependent on other nations for everything. I'm looking for a country that basically believes in border, language, culture. Okay? That's what if you're going to come here, do not come here with your hand out. Come here with your hands ready to work. Come legally and be prepared to be a part of this amazing fabric that we call the United States of America, this republic. And get rid of these people that are always saying, this is a democracy, this is a democracy. Guys, that's one of the biggest fallacies you'll ever hear. We're not. We're a representative republic. We're not a democracy. And it kills me when so many lawmakers in our nation's capital continuously say, we are a democracy. It's embarrassing. It's not true. And it's just the first sign that they may not know what the hell they're talking about. So focus in on your family. Focus in on your faith. Focus in on common sense, and focus in on all of the things that make this republic great. I don't have all of the answers, but when I look at the sea that is formed between the Republicans and the Democrats, it blows my mind because the sea is filled with doubt, it's filled with fear, it's filled with non-truths, it's filled with propaganda, and I will always stay with the people that love their country, believe in law and order, love their faith, love their families, and believe in American exceptionalism. Because it is true, and it's been proven to be true. And tearing that belief down not only doesn't bode well for you and your families, it doesn't bode well for civilization. And if you want to live in a second or third world country, continue down this path and you will eventually realize you've created a monster that you cannot defend yourself from, and you are not prepared to fight. Those are my words here on this amazing Thursday morning, 55 degrees in the great state of Minnesota. Man, I love you guys, and anybody that sits down and takes time to hang out, man, it's awesome. I don't know what's going to happen with this podcast. It might die in 6 months. It might grow to be gigantic. Who cares? Let's have a place where we can come together and hang out and talk about the things that we used to talk about on the campaign trail. I hope and pray so much for this beautiful state of Minnesota. It's been so good to me and my family. And I want everybody to rest assured you live in one of the greatest republics. Having traveled all over the world, this is a truly special place. And treat it that way. You treat your wife as if she's special and she's precious. Well, the United States needs to be treated just like your wife, your spouse, somebody you love. Protect it, love it, and cherish it. Because if you don't, it can go away. God bless you guys. Like, subscribe, check out my YouTube channel, Into the Storm with Ken Novitsky. I don't know what tomorrow holds. I don't know. I hope it's great. I pray it's great. I believe it's going to be great. But the one thing I do know is we have a direct impact on that. Please share this, get this out, and let's keep praising each other and lifting each other up. God bless, guys. All the best. Love you guys. Into the storm.